Welcome, welcome. So this is Orpheus Rodriguez. I'm a career coach, and you're on episode 6 of Career Boost. In this podcast, we usually talk about leadership, management, skills, and talent. I strongly believe these topics are helping you grow in your career, in your professional life, and this is why we discuss them here. Today, I'm so happy to welcome Puja Sapkota. We also call her Puja. She is a well-being specialist at the Global Fund, and she was kind enough to join us today for this discussion on staff well-being initiatives, because obviously from her title, you understand why. I think this topic are good for managers, for leaders, and also for you who are workers who are active in the workplace to help you take better care of yourself, better care of your staff. Welcome again, Puja, to this podcast for part 2.
Thank you.
So we started the first discussion earlier. If you haven't seen the recording before, then you're invited to listen to the first part of the recording that I had with Puja. We talked about the Global Fund and the kind of initiatives they are doing for the organizations, for their staff, and how they are really taking this topic seriously. We didn't have time really to dive into the topic of really how people can individually take care of themselves, and we and also how managers specifically, how can they be more sensitive to this topic, and educate also, and show the example. Yeah, not just like, so Puja mentioned earlier, walk the talk. You're not just telling people what to do, but you also have to be, as a manager, able to show the example, set the example for your staff. So there is I'm going to start really specifically for managers, for leaders. I have a question for you, Puja, which is really how to be attentive, really aware of the signs of burnout, the signs of depression when people are overwhelmed. Because I think when we are so focused, we are great professionals. What I realize oftentimes is that we are great professionals, but when we are moved into leadership roles, we have to learn to take care of our team, our staff. And so how can we really help these managers, these leaders, to better pay attention to those signs of burnout and people who are not taking care of themselves, really? Because that affects their productivity, it affects so many things.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's a question that a lot of people are asking nowadays. So first of all, what many organizations are doing is they are offering specific mental health courses for managers also. And it's not about becoming an expert on mental health, but how to recognize the signs, right? So how can we do that? I think, first of all, when managers are really building that relationship with your team, they would know kind of their employees, right? Their team members. And I think what's normally happens, that would be ideal. But what normally happens is when there's a lot of workload, which is a scenario for many organizations. I think all organizations go through that, companies go through that, just a lot of volume of work and having very limited time to even notice what's going on with other people. Even ourselves, we don't do that, right? So I think the most important thing is really to connect with staffs, taking time. So one of the things that's been promoted over the few years is really using that time of check-ins with your staffs, really not talk about the work always, but also to get to know them outside of the work as a person, right? That really helps them to understand the employees that they have in place. Because you see, burnouts, a lot of people think that it's only for people who are weak, There's kind of a perception that, I'm strong, I can deal with it. But if we look at it, it's at least, in many organizations, and research has shown that actually burnout is uh, prevalent in people who are super engaged, who love their job, and they give a lot, and they keep going on and on and on and on and on. And they keep telling themselves, no, no, it's all good. I can take it. I can take more. I can do more. But they are the ones falling in burnout because they are so passionate about their work. They love their work so much that they want to give more, to the point that they are not even aware of burning out. So, quick example would be, in our organization, we had a health counselor who does a session around burnout, just to making people aware of what are the signs, what can you do, just giving a couple of tips. You can just Google, if you are feeling a bit different, not your usual self. You are becoming more cranky. You are becoming more tired. You can't get out of the bed, but really you cannot, right? Even when we have those signs where it's not so normal for us, usually we wake up, we keep going, we have our coffee, we keep going. Those are the signs of burnout, right? Constantly feeling a bit more emotional than usual, a bit sensitive. Um, really check the signs. I mean, we have so much information on our on the website nowadays that it's really like lack of motivation to work, always feeling tired. That's a big one. Just don't take it for granted. Yeah, we're all feeling tired. I usually feel tired. I'll get better on the weekend. If it's a prolonged increase, please take care. Go and ask your doctors. Um, there's also a increased sense of anxiety in a lot of people, and performance. Then it starts hitting the performance. Okay, so you are not being able to deliver like maybe we used to deliver, right? So these are some of the signs. But if you don't know, just Google. You can find it out. Otherwise, go to your general doctor just to have a check-in. That's some of the things I do tell people to say. Just have a check-in because they are the experts. And how do you recognize in a team? See if there is people going on sick leave more often than not. That is maybe a sign where people are overworked. And normally, what we are also seeing in the well-being aspect is people are taking time off because they just don't know how to deal with it. So they do take sick leave, and it's just to rest. It's to have and nowadays we also call it mental break. Some organizations have started really using that term and recognizing it. And then also when we do the analysis for an organization, that helps also. But depending on each country's regulations, you have to be careful. But what really helps, I think, is managers really telling people that, being vulnerable helps also, because managers go through that as well, right? Because many times managers are also taking the pressure. Um, Very good managers take the pressure on themselves so that it doesn't go to their team. But that's not the best way either. Or some managers don't know how to manage their own stress or their own workload pressures, and then they pass it on to their teams. Both ways, maybe it's not the perfect, because if you are a manager and you take a lot, you are putting yourself through a risk of getting into more emotional breakdown or a burnout situations, right? You don't want to be there. So just being vulnerable about, that we all go through this. And COVID is a great example to say that we have all been through it. It is a stressor that really affects all of us. So there's no shame. I think that taboo slowly is going out. So it's okay to talk about this because we all understand. So it's not just one or two people. We are all going through it in a different phases. And well-being is really like it's a continuum. Throughout the phase, we are going a bit up or down, or maybe smooth, but we are always either in a great or lower. So we just to understand that we are all going through it, and it helps for the teams. And the science is really like check in with people. And if people don't feel comfortable, because, there's always this sense of my manager not being not feeling comfortable to be, to be telling everything just because maybe there's an impact on the performance. Uh, and then managers speaking to that really help. Like, guys, if you need to take a break because you've been working so much, it's okay, right? Because when they trust the staffs, they know that the staffs will be productive if today they want to take some time off just to rest, right? I was just reading one of the research where they said that actually in Google, they already have a sleeping pod in Google, and now they are saying that their overall well-being is actually going in a better direction because people have been giving that time to rest. So people just taking time to rest, because when you are too stressed, you have too many things to do. It's good to sleep over and come back to it with a fresh mind, right? So there's a lot of different strategies, different aspects people are trying to put in place. I think we are still learning about what is the best. We're still not there yet to say this is perfectly what would work for one organization or a team or a manager. So it's really to see what works best for you as an organization, or your team as a individual team, and then how it affects overall impact on how we work with each other. Because one manager might be too relaxed, right? Like, it's all good, everything's okay. That might not work for the staff. So it's just to see how do you create that balance. And also, it's also a question about when it comes to well-being, because it's still new. People don't know how to do it. We are learning. So not to forget that aspect, that we are all learning as we go. And there's no perfect answer right now. That's just my personal opinion. We do have a lot of managers asking for this and not being super confident. They might be super confident in many things, but this is like, okay, there's a new area. How do I do this in a way where my staffs doesn't feel I'm overwhelming them or I'm taking care of their well-being, right?
Yeah.
So
So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just your answers are great, but no, it's a lot of information at once. Thank you. But I also wanted to continue that the conversation when you talk about vulnerability, and how you think people are more and more open-minded about their need for a sick leave and so on. In my experience, I really see a lot of people actually in Switzerland, because we're both in Switzerland, and we see how the system works. You go to your doctor and you have a little chat and you explain how you're feeling and how you really need a little break because it's been overwhelming at work. Some people are still feeling very anxious about it. They feel guilty about it, how to explain with your colleagues and so on, how to explain that you've been absent, that you've been away. We have this culture though of you have to be tough, you have to be this, you have to be that, and I there's a person that I've been really this researcher, I'm sure you know, Brené Brown. She's really a reference in this discussion of vulnerability, especially for managers, for leaders, and how to recognize that it's okay. It's okay to need a break. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay not to be Superwoman or Superman, so I think these are references that we can also give out to our listeners today. The topic about vulnerability, I think in terms of sick leaves and so on in Switzerland, we see a trend though that is not going away, because we still people I see a lot of people suffering at work, and even though yes, we should be okay having this discussion, I feel that for example, I have a client at the moment who is in a situation where she had like the COVID long, with the long effects of COVID, and well, she just needed maybe one day out at home, working from home, and the managers didn't accept it, you see. The managers didn't accept that this was a requirement for her. So instead of giving her this 1 day of working remotely, they refused, and at the end she had to take some sick leaves because they didn't listen to her need. She came up front and asked for it, and they didn't listen. And in fact, not only they did not listen, but they also then came back with suggestions, with like doctors, and saying, maybe you need support for your job, maybe you need an extra person. You're giving the person solutions that she doesn't need. She told you what she needs, and you're not listening. And so how can we really respond better when we know that there are other solutions, not necessarily the ones that we expect or want for our staff, but we also have to be able to listen. I don't know if you've experienced some situations like that in your organization, but how can we, advocate for better care in this way? Not the care we want, but the care that people really need.
Yeah, very good point. First of all, when, it's a human nature, right? There are always people who will take advantage of a system, okay, or policies. But majority of the time, people have goodwill, right? We are coming from a good place. That's at least what I believe. And what I see is a lot of people don't take that time early enough. Prevention, although we know that prevention is much better than getting in, trying to get a person before, after that, right? It costs more to an organization. So, yes, many times because people feel guilty of taking time and taking care of themselves, they feel like I'm being selfish. My team is going to be in trouble if I'm not there. And that's one of the drivers in many of the members in the team is they know that everybody's stretched, right? It's such a common symptom. Like it's not this organization, this industry, but it's come like we are all going through the same in all organizations. So that's why I think it's a time where organization really needs to look at it differently, because if we continue to go pre-COVID, like now we we have to say pre and post, if we continue to like go like that, it's not going to last for long. And even the employees, we know that if we continue to put that stress on ourselves, we will have we will have to there will be consequences on our health and well-being. And I think for many people that is not a price that we want to pay anymore, right? So either we leave the organization, and we are being asked to make that choice, honestly. And if organizations are smart, like you said, they will be listening to people. That's why I said, the studies are showing that it's not one size fits, but you really need to dig deeper and really see what would work for that team, because every team works, they have their own characteristics, right? The management has its own style. And I think it's by both, supporting the managers to understand that when people are saying this, it's like, when kids come and say, I'm not hungry, but parents keep giving them food. That they are not hungry, right? Sometimes it's difficult for us to just understand that people are saying what they need.
But I see a lot of these mistakes, to be honest, Puja. I see a lot of these mistakes where organizations, they're giving solutions, but they're not the right solutions. They're not the solutions that these people actually need, because they're not listening.
And I think that's where the coaching, this whole industry of coaching is coming in, and why coaching skills are being so valuable. Because what the coaching really helps us to understand when we are coaching or working with people is co-creating, right? I can see a difference. We have a manager and she has a coaching background, right? The conversation, the way she leads the meeting, the way we are talking about things are so different than someone who doesn't have the coaching background. right?
Right.
Because the person really knows how to co-create something, whether
Cool.
it's a work objective or well-being, right? So it's really listening to each one of them, being very clear that just because you are listening doesn't mean that a manager can implement everything that everybody's saying, right? Making that expectation, managing the expectation.
Yeah.
So really, I think for me, it's more about evolution, all of this. You know, if I take out the well-being aspect, the organization aspect, it's humanity. We are all evolving. You know, we had something in place that's not working for us anymore, like this
Yeah.
busy schedule, workload. For many of us, it's not working. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really about we are evolving as a human being, our brains are evolving. And then we are asking, what would work for me? What kind of organization is working for me? So for your listeners who are looking for jobs, right? I think what I think is, you know, we had a situation, we were thinking that, you know, when we go for a job interview, put ourselves small, you know, it's not the organizations looking for talents, it's now me also looking for an organization who is providing that basic minimum things which is coming with the millennials, right? For them, they would rather take less money, less prestigious, but have time for themselves. They are choosing quality over quantity
Yeah.
sometimes, right? Their own quality of life. Do they have support for mental health? Do I have? Can I do my purpose? Can I be creative? Can I be myself at work? Right. So organizations have to uh, start implementing and being open to that if we are going to cater to the new generation of people, because they no longer will fit into the old mindset of fixed mindset kind of an organization. That's my, you know, personal overview. And to empower yourself, when you go and look for an organization, look if the organization values or things is aligned with how you want to be working in a company, right? Like for me personally, I have always chosen in my life, in my career, I didn't go up in the ladder because I didn't want more pressure. That's just a personal choice I made, right? So I stayed wherever I am, but doing few other things that I really am passionate about, like the well-being. So because I can do this and I also have time for the other one, because I chose not to have a huge workload, because my quality would go less, because I still wanted to be with my son. I'm a single mother, you know, with my son, with my family, and not go home thinking about work all the time or consuming my life just thinking about work. Many times we forget that work is a very small part of our life,
Mm.
which is a whole thing, right? Work is one small piece of that.
Yeah.
But what happens when we are working is it seems like all we have is that little pie, you
Mm.
know, which we call work. And we base everything on that and completely ignoring the rest, like not doing much around the rest, like taking care of ourselves, having fun, relaxing. You know, we are not doing things that our human, we are not being, you know, as a human being. We
Mm.
just become a human doing,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just keep doing. We don't we don't even have time to sit and rest. What kind of life are we trying to build if we don't even have time to breathe, to eat, to sleep? Just basic human needs. It's a Maslow's pyramid, right? Basic needs here. We
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
to thrive. If we
Yeah.
can't sleep well, one of
Yeah.
the biggest thing in well-being is people not sleeping
Yeah.
properly, because we are working so much, we have so much stress, we are thinking about it all night long, we don't eat well, we don't, our physical, mental, emotional, everything is going upside down, and we can't sleep. So, and that cycle is going on and on and on. So until we break that cycle, which we have been going through until now, we can't, yeah, we can't come up with a better way of living, to be honest. That's how I see. That's why it is so important organization understands this. And I think slowly we are moving there. So all of this is really, I think in the next 10 to 15 years, we will see shifts because organizations are recognizing it. We have a lot more studies coming out now than ever before. Like if you think about mental health, did you ever hear about mental health 10 years ago? Like we hear today? We have much more information. People are talking about mental health much more today than it was 10 years ago, right?
Yeah,
Mindfulness, meditation, yoga, 10 years ago
yeah,
was not a common language. So I do believe that we are, all of
yeah.
us working slowly towards that.
So obviously, of course, we as individuals, we have to take the right. You have to make the right choice and ask the right questions when you apply for a job and when you think about entering a new organization, entering a new team, and working for a new manager. Because yes, we have our lives, and I appreciate more and more actually candidates who are also as a recruiter who are also not afraid to talk about their family life and say, it's not an obligation. You obviously don't have to do it by law, but if you want to do it and discuss it over an interview, it means you're also setting the tone, as in, yes, I'm here, I'm here working, but I'm here to work, but I also have a life. And so your job is actually going to fit into my life or not. And there is one point that you also mentioned is coaching. You said your manager currently, she has this coaching background, and that makes a whole difference.
Personally, for me, that's what
Yeah.
I can see the difference
Yes.
between different managers.
And I think the work culture that we are in, it really is impacted also by who we are reporting to, who is leading us, and who is welcoming us into the organization. And those managers, obviously, it's always the struggle because they feel like the whole world is in their is on their shoulder. Like they have to carry the weight for a lot of things, and it's a really important decision to take out to be a manager and to lead a team in your organization. But I realized that more and more, um, that these people need to be coached in a little, at least a little bit, in terms of like taking on this role, helping their transition, their own transition, and helping other people also join their team, so that they are also able to talk about self-awareness, self-care, and all these things at work. If you have a manager who is open and telling you that you're allowed to be tired, you're allowed to be sick, you're allowed to speak up, you're allowed to say you're tired and you need a break, and you've been fed up and this and that. And that's where again we come back to psychological safety. You don't want to be afraid of speaking up and saying what you really need. And the coaching approach is really here. You're always helping. It's walking hand by hand
Yeah,
with as an equal with your with your with your team. You're not in the ivory tower. You're actually sitting down with them, and you're talking equal to equal. What are your needs? And these are my needs too. I'm a manager, but I'm also tired, you know.
yeah,
We also have big deadlines, and it's hard. And so really working on this proximity is so important.
yeah,
Because this podcast is really to help managers to, to better support their teams, but it's also to help candidates. It's true, to find an environment that fits with them and to help them be more of themselves at work. That's really important. So we have 1 minute, so I'm happy to let you finish with one last note for
absolutely.
the listeners.
Thank you. Very shortly, I think for me personally, what I understood in my own life, and work and family, all of these comes when we start looking inside ourselves,
Mm,
right? Trying to understand ourselves first
yeah,
before we try to understand everybody else.
yes,
When we understand who we really are at the
yeah,
core of our soul, you know, and understand why we get upset, why we get angry, why we get frustrated, why something disappoints, why I don't like this person,
Yeah.
why something triggers me. When we invest more time trying to understand and analyze and get to know ourselves better, which is the self-awareness part, um, that gives an insight on within ourselves and the confidence to know oh, I am this person, right? And connect with ourselves. And then that is then poured into, okay, now that I know myself, this is the emotional, the perfect competencies. Like you need to get to know yourself better, then you can understand other people. So
Yeah.
I always try to encourage, because that's worked well for me. I tried to understand myself finally, then I understood other people, and then I could relate to other people and work with other people. So I
Yeah.
really invite people to um, try to understand yourself if you haven't, and see how you can get to know yourself better, um, because that will really help you understand the people around you or the situations and things around you. And that's a safe space because you can always go back to yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we are like schizophrenic trying to alter our personalities to each people around us. And that's the groundedness. So, yes,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can do it by yourself, but you can take some tests, some listen to different speakers and so on. But there is also the other way of reaching out to a coach. That's where they help you with self-awareness.
yeah,
Actually, it's a topic that I discussed in my previous podcast, previous episode with Dr. Rana. So if you haven't watched this episode with Dr. Rana, you can listen to it. Thank you so much, Puja. We
thank
had a great,
you.
great conversation. We are wrapping up these 2 episodes today, and so I really look forward to seeing you actually soon at our alumni
Next,
meeting.
yes, yes.
All
Thank
right.
you so much
Thank
for the
you.
opportunity.
Thank you. Okay,
Bye.
let's.
Thank you.